Welcome to the first annual Graham R. Lewis Memorial Poetry Award. And I suppose the first order of business would be to give a large round of applause to our 9 finalists seated here in the front row. Those of us on the reading committee, I'll introduce them now. Jason Brown, Stephen Swords, Bob Zerdani. We're all very impressed with the work that we received, and we think you'll enjoy listening to it this afternoon. And let's also thank Denise Preston and Michael Loudon, who couldn't be here this evening, but round of applause for our judges and reading committee. Big thanks also to the English department for their support, to Kit Maurice there in the back here at Tarble for getting us all set up, and of course, the man responsible for the award's existence, Mr. Joe Butler, right there in the green shirt. And last but not least, we wouldn't have Graham at all without her. His mother is here, Roberta. They're sitting in front of Joe. All right, I'll give you a quick rundown of how exactly this is going to work. Each one of the finalists will read their work for approximately 5 minutes. During that time, the judges over here will mark numbers next to completely unquantifiable and rather vague criteria. And at the end, Joe will say a few words, and while he's doing that, we'll be adding up those numbers, and then we will announce the places at the end. I think I left something out there. Oh, I did. This is very important. There is one very quantifiable category, and that is audience response. So you are encouraged to clap or make whatever noises or gestures or anything that you care to do to show support for your friends and for everyone who's reading tonight. So don't be shy. Without further ado, shall we begin? All right. First up, welcome to the stage, Porche Graves.
This poem is entitled Mistress Revenge. Rock and roll killed my soul, and fame was a bitch too. Johnny Ace was the love of my life, probably yours too. He always knew who he wanted to be, but he could never be who I thought he should be. I know he did not want to die with that pistol staring him in the eye, those brown eyes that I love so much. He used to write songs about me, but somehow she became intertwined in the lyrics of our songs. Fame was the bitch who pulled the trigger. We used to live a quiet, peaceful, nobody knew our name, Memphis kind of life. Then the world turned around, forming another day, and everybody wanted a piece of him, and there was nothing left for me. When rock and roll decides it no longer wants you anymore, after it has slowly picked away at your soul, it leaves women like me to pick up the pieces of that soulless body. I think fame forgot who she is. I am all too happy to remind her. See, I'm Miss Johnny, the wife. Till death do we part. I do, he do, we do. 1 + 1 = 2. There is no room for 3. Fame, the bitch who attempted to steal my heart, he may have lain in your bed, but at the end of his rock star party night, he comes home to me, the wife. Fame, remember, you are the bitch who pulled the trigger. I am the one who buried his body and pleaded to rock and roll for his soul. I do not doubt that he loved you. In my mind, he loved me more. He never did what I thought he should, and he could never be what I wanted him to be. Everyone forgot I was there first. They let the mistress Fame take my place. Christmas Eve, 1954. All 3 of us in this triangle of love. My soul died too. Johnny wrote his last great song. I give myself the gift of forever. 25 forever, hip forever, top of the charts forever and ever. I still don't know if he wrote that for me or you. If only for a second in time I could speak to my heart again, I would say, Johnny, John, I thought I should tell you that my favorite color is your eyes. They remind me of sugar, brown sugar. They have never but once told me a lie. My favorite moment is of you and me. My favorite everything is you. I don't know if you knew. I thought I should tell you before the sun sets on another day, before the earth rotates on its axis, before the raindrops touch my face and reflect as tears, before the hail beats down, before the snow blankets away my pain, before the last autumn leaf falls to the ground. I thought I should tell you I love you. 25 years of life you took away from me. I didn't even have a seed to blossom and bear fruit. Fame, you bitch, you better beware because I'm coming for you. I only want what is owed to me. I want my soul, my Johnny. I know he is waiting for me. I never wanted to die with this pistol staring into my eyes. But here you are, here I am, Christmas Eve, 1955. Bitch, pull the trigger.
That's what we're talking about. Thank you very much. Next up, Mr. Solomon Enis. I'm sorry, Miss Solomon Enis.
I've never performed poetry before to follow up behind a performance artist. Thanks. Well, my poem is titled after Mr. Lewis's poem, Lester's Tales of the Seasons, and his poem is T-A-L-E-S. Mine is Lester Tales of the Seasons, and it is T-E-L-L-S. Spring, a white flower straightens, reaching with the sun, straining stems, plump and we move back. It grows stronger, taller, longer, roots growing farther in every direction. They finger their way to the tips of our feet. We gasp. It stops. The entire circumference of it stops. Bowing down, we inquire with our eyes, is that you, Lefty? Summer. The broom groans and adjusts the arc of its straws. The ends of its spirals gobble and engulf the air. Its handle shimmies and jerks. Wood, straw, binding, twine, time. The floor blows puffs of smoke in tight triangles, prisms alight our outstretched hands. The dust sings to us, then burns. The curtains and all the fear drifting in the air, it all burns. Fall. The flames awaken night's sleepy air. You can see spirits waving at the moon. Alas, fireflies have something to watch. The dead dance, naming themselves Molly, Adam, and Eve, inhabiting the bodies of the living for just a while until they are spurt into condoms or just laugh, cry, hug, and dance all the way out. Once the bonfire is nothing but embers, and the inhabitees are long gone, the spirits will gather fallen hairs, form beds, and court butterflies. Winter. Not a damn thing can be done about it. Cold wind blows through his knees. Frost seals his lips. Every man with a pad and every woman with a pen, you are ordered to shut up and write. Write for Lefty Bowen. Write for Maley. Write for Henry Jordan. Write for Juke Hudson. And write for Graham. Yes, Graham, in your prayer journals. And ask God, yes, God, that you're forever not come today.
Scaro.
Hi everybody, I'm Emily. I have 5 poems. My first poem is called For My Boyfriend, and I wrote it for my boyfriend. Okay, so I'm just gonna start. I say, inspire me, be my muse. Delight me, let our minds wander, tiptoe across the plains of our imagination. Teach me to see beauty in the world, to see color in a black and white photograph. Love me so I can love you like you deserve to be loved, so I can love love so deeply that love's puny brain can't wrap its mind around what my feeling fully entails. And he says, no, shut up. My second poem is called Toby the Half-Boy. It's based on a Graham Lewis poem called Toby the Half-Boy. Sliced through with the circular blade of an old sawmill, or maybe it was a red-hot laser beam. Others say he was just born that way. His body split from head to ass, like half of him just fell away dissolved. No matter, he is lopsided. Only 1 foot, 1 hand, half a brain. This is embarrassing. Oh, so only half a brain. The right side he must have quite inventive. So all his organs must be compressed or missing. Hard to tell without splitting open and peering inside. He has a cyclops with 1 nostril and a single brow. 1 ear like Van Gogh, but his story lacks romance. He's not a tortured artist, but a freak, and that's all he's ever going to be. My next poem is called The Mermaid. Men with sea legs hoist the half-girl crying. Oh my gosh. Men with sea legs hoist the half-girl crying. Scales shimmer as delicately as her limp body hangs. Okay, I'm just gonna skip to my last poem. Okay, so my last poem is called Lip Lock. 2 robots Frenched in the park. Wires licked expectantly, entwined and untwined rhythmically like the power source inside, and on the heartbeat of their tongues. They kissed like someone put magnets in their lips and slid them towards each other. They kissed like if they quit, they would stand, faces touching. They kissed like they were stuck in a loop. They kissed like statues, but not like art. They kissed like it was paying the bills, like jury duty, like sitting at a stop sign, like shoveling snow from the sidewalk. They weren't fools in love with being in love. They didn't kiss like Angel and Buffy, Antony and Cleopatra, Ross and Rachel. They weren't inspired by Titanic or The Notebook or kissing the world goodbye. They never hummed mindlessly, stopped to sniff the roses, skipped off into the sunset. They kissed like they thought it would make them more human. It didn't. Since that went better, I'm going to try my other poem. Cross your fingers, you got some good luck here. It ain't nice to laugh at Jesus. Plans are hatched across long tables in dark rooms, or floating above a cauldron where a witch's warts have found their final resting place. But my mother says that there's a divine plan, that I had to put my life on cruise control, relax. I jump too much, panic like I'm under attack. Can't let go just because she says Jesus has plans for the freaks of this world. I need my own hand-plotted strategy, a lesson in cartography, maybe navigation. But to put my fate into the nailed-through hands of her Lord and Savior, that's not good enough.
All right, please welcome to the stage next, Hannah Green.
Good afternoon. I'll be reading a series of brief episodes from my short story, Like Peaches of Pork, which was inspired by the poems of Graham Lewis. I remember creeping inside the tent, gently parting those folds to find it dark inside, with maybe room for 30 of those wooden folding chairs, and most of them were full. I crept down the side aisle, about halfway to the stage, and took a seat. I recognized most of the people from town, but it was different. Hush, quiet. The fire eaters were up on stage already, and they'd transfixed most of the crowd, including Loretta. She was 3 or 4 seats across from me, and almost everyone in that place was staring at the stage with mouths wide open. Those fire guys, that tossed burning rods between them, 2 men and a woman, good-looking people, half-naked bodies slipped between the rolling flames. I could smell the smoke, hear the fluttering of fire as it sputtered through the arcs of air. The fire eaters would dance off stage, leaving us all flustered, breathless. Then came the first of the freaks, Toby the half-boy, I think it was, and man, was he ever. Nothing below the waist but a bulge at his crotch. No feet, no knees, no nothing but a rounded pelvis. His muscles rippled as he pulled himself across the stage. Ropes and drapes descended from above, and he climbed, hand over fist, and swung between them. He rolled and tumbled above the stage, fluid and graceful, like he could never be on the floor. It was hypnotic watching that guy flying around. After Half Boy, they brought out a guy who was hunched over under a cape. When he flipped off the hood, he looked like a barnacle, but somehow soft. The crowd was silent as he shuffled across the stage. It was painful to watch, painful to listen to. I shivered in revulsion and thanked God that I didn't have to touch him, just in case it was catching. The fire eaters were there between every performance, though. I know what they do ain't magic, just training, but it still looks like some sort of magic when they're spitting fire out their mouths. The way they moved and contorted between the flames, the way their bodies bent and writhed and glistened, like they too were burning inside. I glanced at Loretta, and her face was calm, but she hung on the edge of her chair, enraptured. We were all bathed in an orange glow that twisted and broke our shadows, and the fire on stage made Loretta's skin look alive. I remember that I couldn't stop looking at her as she shifted in the heat of the tent. She pulled at her collar and fanned the air in front of her face. It was getting hot as hell in there when I saw Loretta rubbing her left hand on her trousers and looking at it, like she had one of those itches that gets under your skin. For a moment, she relaxed and leaned back in the chair. She looked over at me and smiled, and I saw an innocence, a youthfulness in her I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful and, well, vibrant, alive. She looked lovely. That's how she'd have said she looked, lovely. And then it happened. Loretta's body twitched and she shook her hand like you do when you realize there's a spider sitting on it. A wisp of smoke came out of her hand and hung in the air a moment. She looked at me with the oddest expression on her face, like it was the first time she'd ever had a question and she didn't know what she needed was an answer. Those big eyes of hers found mine and they sparkled too bright. And then, I don't know how else to say it, but that woman went up like a stack of hay in late summer. Her whole body started burning and I could feel the heat of it. It was like standing right close to a bonfire, but more so. I remember how I felt my arm hairs move and my skin shrink. It was so hot when Loretta was screaming. I tried to reach for her, tried to get her on the ground so we could roll the flames out, but I couldn't get near her. The crowd started screaming and gagging with the stench of her burning. It was sweet, but bitter, like peaches and pork burned black. That scream of hers. I bet those that heard it still hear it in their dreams, just like I do. They say it was negligence on the part of the staff, that the wooden chairs and hay-covered floor were to blame, but I knew better. Thing was, when she went up, nothing else was touched. Her body had hit the floor in a smoldering lump, but the chair she had sat on was only scorched. It was the performance that set that whole place afire. The leaders on stage lost control of their magic. What no one seemed to say is that it all went up after the fact. It was after she had stopped screaming and the flames had dropped off her that we saw the stage curtains burning, and we all hightailed it out of there. In the end, I'd run out of the tent like all the other cowards, left what was left of Loretta behind, didn't look back till I was a safe distance. I remember how it took forever for the fire trucks to get there, and by the time they did, smoke was rolling up in the sky and bits of ash were falling like black snow. I watched the tent burn and wondered if bits of Loretta were falling too.
Next up, Mr. David Bagnani.
Good afternoon. First, it's an honor to be one of the finalists, even a bigger honor to be a group of such talented people. And to perform in front of such an attractive, intelligent-looking I have two poems for you to enjoy over there. The first poem I had written back during Thanksgiving. It was a very light, entertaining poem until someone who is mentioned in the poem passed away, and it became very personal. And I'd like to read that for you right now with my glasses. There's a trick to cooking potatoes. It's how I was taught. First, boil them with their jackets on. When the fork can easily penetrate the skin, let them cool on the table or countertop. When you can handle them, drag the sharp edge of a knife around the length of the potato in one smooth motion. Then pull the skin down off of each face. Slice them. Don't chop them, don't quarter them. Slice them. You want to feel the warmth in your hand. You need to be patient. That's how you tell the difference between real and artificial. It's why it tastes better. I can't sit when slicing potatoes. I have to stand, patiently peeling potatoes while standing. Standing alone in the back room of the kitchen, listening to my Aunt Nancy bark orders down the line. California burger, grilled cheese, turkey club, whole tomato. Ladies, pick up. Hot roast beef, side of mash. Ladies, food is getting cold. Pick up, ladies. In the back room with the chickens floating in the sink, pies cooling on an aluminum rack, Grammy out next to the ovens, drifting in and out of slumber, slicing cucumbers, or snapping beans if it's a Tuesday. Next step, use a hand masher. Metal or wood, it doesn't matter. There's going to be lumps. But you need to expect that. There's always going to be lumps. Don't use a mixer, it makes them starchy. It's about the potatoes, and you have to make time for potatoes. I like butter and heavy cream in my potatoes, a little salt, a little pepper, some garlic if I'm feeling exotic, but never too much. Sometimes I think it needs more, something different or extra to make them better. But whenever I add something more to the potatoes, you can always tell there's something missing. Thank you. This next poem I actually had written specifically for this competition. It's about mothers, so if you love your mother, I would imagine you'd really enjoy this poem and really make a lot of it. Mama loves to paint the ocean. Saturdays, when it's cold enough for winter's talc to drift across the road and barricade our door, when it's cold enough to exhale on windows, write my name before the lattice of ice reclaims its territory. On these days, Mama opens a red case, a drawing of a tree carefully pasted on the lid, a tree she sketched while in high school. Inside, there's linseed oil, turpentine, tubes of color squeezed dry like old toothpaste. Mama stretches the canvas tight across a clean maple frame. In my white hat, with 6 shooters waiting to be free from black plastic prisons, I lay on my stomach, watch a masked man ride a white horse across the gray desert, helping in search for cattle rustlers and other varmints. Her brushes clink in the empty mason jar, making wind chime music. Shots of silver bullets spill from the speaker of the beige television. Taking out the wide brush, Mama gessos the canvas. The smell of oil paint blends with the soot from an old kerosene heater scarred by my dad's boots from when he used it as an ottoman. As white paint dries, Mama sifts through photos of summer, when heat blanketed earth and wind carried grains of sand into our hair and eyes, when icy pops stained our tongues, fingers stuck to cotton candy, and the steam from hot dogs made our mouths water. Carefully, she holds a picture up to the light, then pinches out color, smoothing them with a butter knife. The Lone Ranger, with a hi-ho silver, rides off into a fuzzy sunset. After her sky and beach are done, she makes me a ham sandwich, pours Kool-Aid in a Huckleberry Hound jelly jar, plants me back in front of the television to giant monsters and airplanes dropping bombs. She carves clouds and waves into the blues and grays, sprays mist around big black rocks. In Mama's paintings, the sun doesn't rise. In Mama's paintings, the sun doesn't set. It hides behind thick funereal storm clouds. while I listen to radioactive roars like needles scratching against vinyl. Thank you.
Welcome to the stage, please, Ms. Emily Bowers.
I don't have a bell or anything. So I'm doing 3 relatively short poems today. I tried to emulate Graham's style as closely as I could, so they're not like my traditional style. The first 2 poems are an ode to Our Lady of the Fields, which is a series of poems that Graham did about a Coles County woman named Marjorie, so these 2 are a connection to that character, Marjorie. And then the last one is called Henry Gordon Does It Again, which is based on a character named Henry Jordan that Graham created to explore what he usually explores, which is the dark areas of the human heart, as far as just a common farmer could take it. So the first one is Marjorie Listens to the Crows. The leaves whisper as they fall, telling Marjorie it's time to let go of him, to let him fall into the dew that cakes the cornfields in Coles County, Illinois, and never think of him again. She never listens, begging his picture that can't escape her worn, callous hand, crushing force urging him to come back, to hear her blood-soaked plea. She ignores the silence of the wind as it stops to confront her. The crows take up their hymns in its absence, and Marjorie turns a naked eye to them and laughs. Marjorie embraces the season. She waits to let the cold light of winter embrace her crackling skin. As Marjorie scrapes the black dirt from underneath her fingernails, she watches the dawn envelop the darkness that cloaks those dying cornfields. She sees the fog rising to unveil her pain, to bring back the pulsing memory of that boy she once had, the one buried under the frost, with the hidden fossils and bones of animals no one ever saw. Then, the need to push the wall of darkness back over the field seeps into her lungs. Already she's got the picture in her hand. Already she's cutting her wrist with its sharp edges. Marjorie lifts her eyes to the steady beats of crow's wings in the sky and waits as her black blood fertilizes those barren fields. Maybe the fields needed her too. Henry Gordon does it again. I have to admit, Henry Gordon hated Betsy. So when he told me he ate her for dinner, I wasn't surprised. The damn cow always kicked him, drooled on him, and otherwise made getting milk every morning and painted his freckled ass. His wife Meryl had no problem pulling on those wrinkled baby penis udders, but Henry seethed at the thought of Betsy's disrespect. So, one day when Meryl was out, he shot Betsy in the head. Right between those bulbous eyes he just knew weren't so innocent. As she lay on the ground, eyelids twitching, blood and tissue spewing onto the open field, he bent down and stared straight into Betsy's dead eyes and said, "Not so funny now, is it?" Then he kicked her in the head and cut off one of her udders for a souvenir. When Meryl got home, he asked, "How about burgers for dinner?" and smiled.
Next up, J.P. Salis.
Three poems. Poem 1. Don't know what your problem is, but you can't keep throwing up on everything. It's clear you have no idea how much a roll of brownie costs. What do you want me to do? Start buying napkins from the Dollar Tree? That stuff's for frat kids. Or do you like to be chased? Rhetorical question, just listen. There's this new thing made from movable rubber. If I'd known about it before, I would have gotten some for you. Because the Google says it would keep you from getting chlamydia. Shh. Remember the last time you got what? You like the best when you have it. It gives you character. Becky says she won't touch us until I give you antibiotics and it clears up. You don't care. Watch your attitude, mister, or I won't play with you either. Damn penis. Poem 2, this Friday. Your immaculateness is water on instant mashed potatoes, urging me to stop being a flake and to become delicious. I'll change my face, I'll tear off my clothes, prepare for a world of thunder to open before your eyes, and only for your eyes. It's because there's no one else that smiles just like you that can have this effect on nations and on cities and on men, on the judges. Your psychedelic girl, like a whispering serenade, keeps me chasing to Britney Spears perfume. Let my tongue unstick itself and have a swagger that can rap verses quick enough to make you sparkle. Give me just this Friday to tweeze my brows into one direction my hair. Give me just these few days to beg my mom to let me use some Gucci, Dolce and Gabbana jacket. Lend me this little time to train my back to make a brave sound, courageous enough to learn law so I get to throw my hat at people and not get sued. Let me use my power of geometry and physics to throw small balls out of big parks, all in French so I can tell you you're better than Angelina Jolie. Right now, a 1960s black and white TV, but I'll become the gay pride parade and burst with neon color for you. I'll find a savior, I'll gain religion, and make it Lent every day and give up the things you don't like. I accept that I'm Dasani, boring and glory tasting. I don't accept that I can't become Diet Mountain Dew, refreshing and flavorful, yet still calorie-free. So you, with your beauty, my Juliet, my Bella, just wait until this Friday. I'll open up a world inside of you, the way you've opened one in me. My last poem is called Never Get Old. My cousin's friend didn't drink enough palm and dyed his hair too much. But who can know who one will become in just a decade's time to go so fast as he always thought his life would go. He tracked his arms with needles, someone who used to be someone back when drugs were cool, with pants, a generation too young and a seductive mood, a decade far too old. His 44th birthday is just a day away and it haunts him to have to say old, dated things to the new, fresh faces. He's always been his superstar self, and unlike them, he won't accept being anything else. Though my cousin's friend will leave this world ugly, he will certainly not leave it old, because he always did tell them that he would never, ever be like them. Never get old. Thank you so much.
All right, welcome to the stage, Tori Sims.
Hi guys, I'm Tori. As far as I'm concerned, you're all in your underwear, so. But anyways, I don't know how the writing process went for the other 8 of you guys, but for me, it kind of started in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep. And instead of reading the 50 to hundreds of pages that I probably had for B.B. or Hamlin's class, I would instead read Graham's poetry, and he had an amazing concept of people and who they actually were. And it was something that actually helped me get through the end of a rough semester. So anyways, I've got 2 poems for you guys today. The first one is called Peeping Jane, and it was inspired by Graham's dragline. Green breaks the earth where a fence stood instead. She studies the stone replacement low so that children and pets can intermingle to pull buds from their neighbor's row. Not a soul would raise eyebrow on the loose wiggle of space between stones 7 and 8, used to pull buds from their neighbor's row. Gotta open this. Sorry, I'm nervous. Not a soul would raise eyebrow upon the crevice between stones 7 and 8, the loose wiggle of space used to store skeletons in the white woman's yard. A tinkle of chimes in the familiar rush of the door, the threshold that their neighbor uses to cross and enter and exit and enter the car as his hello implores. Yes, her fiance as well and her family's coming to visit on Sunday. Inhale and exhale deeply smoke that arises from the chimney across the way. Above muslin curtains that she parts with power. In the dark, she watches her neighbor undress and caress his small wife between her thighs, beneath pictures of their 4 estimated children. She hears the invisible groans of the fence now dead. Maybe blue clouds, old man isn't lazy, but the pale face of innocence instead. Her neighbor waves and he shifts hurriedly back into motion, and she puts her cigarette out on the ground and sweeps a loose lock of hair back into the check of privilege, now neatly found. Sorry, thank you. That was the first one. All right, and then my second piece is called Leave Rage at the Door, and it's inspired by Graham's Blue Yodel number 13. The eldest uncle makes his niece cry at her 4th grade birthday party. Tiny fingers sore from tying balloons just to have her mother pry them patiently from her eager grip. He buys the family expensive gifts, but they won't see him for 3 years. Upon return, he suffocates his cross, his Bible, rejected from seminary, red-stained / white tablecloth open, and he smiles at his niece, saying, "You will rot in hell." His cheeks puff scarlet when he spits the word nigger. His niece fights against the toxic rage building inside of her, but she can't. Her own peace burns neon. Her father says go if you can't respect her request to leave rage at the door. He sees that his little girl has become a woman, has smelled burning flesh. Her mother cries, "What if he were your brother?" They tortured him. They called him Fat Blinky as convulsions made him piss himself alone in a house of mold and Italian furniture. But most refused to look through the eye sockets of the paper boy. Her uncle's only job, selling papers for 25 cents at the local newsstand. He tried to appeal, but instead knocked everything down, laying on his back, laughter ringing in his ears, closing his eyes, praying to his God, "Take me." And instead he watched as the papers floated down beside him one at a time, charring the area around his foot, his hands, his forehead, and he sank lower. His niece she chisels desperately to save that boy trapped in cold cement, to protect him like she would a wounded animal, but he is a man. With skin that crawls pressed cheek to her uncle's cheek, she retreats beyond the threshold. And before the eldest uncle can turn his back on her, she says, "I forgive you." Thank you.
And now for our final reader of the afternoon, Ethan Slattery.
Slam. My dealers told me about the new year back in China. Only he's calling it his homeland. So I say, "Shut the fuck up, Johnny. You were born in Baltimore." And he just laughs while I'm pounding knuckles into the table, pretending it's his face. Okay, Jesus, man," he says, uncaging to slip the tinfoil from his palm. "Why so tense? You no junkie yet?" Next thing I know, he ripples a tire on my bicep and rolls out a rig from the exchange over an 11. Dabbing a mile with alcohol. Gravity hits then. I'm blurring, taut, swallowing spit, unsure. He notices. "Don't worry, I got told this some pure shit," he says, over the gulf of a metal spoon. Busy conjuring flames and dragons and loading the barrel of smack. Real pure, like tasting heaven. He's dabbing it now. Like meeting God. And I'm not ready. God, I'm not ready. Poppy cores my arm like an apple, spattering blood like seeds on the floor, and I can't see because I'm screaming, trying to keep from bleeding out in a stack of National Geographics. No, that didn't happen. Just nerves. The needle slides easy to my thundering veins, and he draws back a swirl of rusty vessels. Just know the river's running right. I can feel his flashing eyes and the infinite pause that spreads time and space like a blanket, slowing the world with a crawl of a pearl of sweat down my back. He grins. I blink. Pearl breaks, and the plunger earns its name. Perspective. Canadians I met 2 hours before. Light a match and spark a joint. Everything about it insatiable. At 4 in the afternoon, they call me Buddy, and I watch a spider vanish into a hole near a Maple Leaf Penny as they talk about newfies and the state of the modern fishing trade. Smoke makes puddles around my hands as I fall asleep on the splintered wood of the old campus bridge, where below bugs cut trails on the water's surface, looking for the promised land. I spit in the water, luring a school of minnows, hungry slivers making shadows in the shallow brook. I think of what it must be like watching that spit fall from above, alien and huge. I think of watching sunlight scattered fractals on craggy moss hills, where sticks tower like oaks and frogs rest, sentinels to sights of dragonflies and 3 kids on an old wood bridge. I think of what it must be like looking up, fish-eye lens, breathing water, shielded from the vastness of that outside space. I can't stop laughing when it starts to rain. Education. Daddy taught me how to put a bullet through a bottle at 50 yards, how to trap, kill, skin and gut any animal this side of the state line. Hot on them amphetamines, Daddy told me, don't let nobody take what's yours. When I caught my baby sleeping around, I did like Daddy taught me.
Joe, come up.
Graham was a great friend of mine. While we were in college, we were basically inseparable. We did everything together except he wrote poetry and I philosophized, because I guess I was a philosophy major, which basically meant I went to a bar. A professor who's no longer here who would go to the bar as well, sometimes during class. I don't think they allow that anymore. It's probably a good idea. Some thank yous for things and people that haven't been thanked yet. I won't thank things that have been. The performers, although I would say thank you and also accuse you, how dare you take Graham Lewis's work and do it better. That was on the porch at Kit and Graham's home at his memorial service is where a few of us talked about doing something like this. And as we envisioned, how this could possibly go, we'll have a poetry contest and we'll have a poetry slam. This is just fantastic. Graham looking down from us in heaven, or hopefully not up at us, would be very proud at what we've all taken from his words and changed them and made them your own. And as Graham's great friend Bob Jones liked to say, borrowed, because Graham was a great borrower of things. He took things and synthesized them and made them be his own, and you've all done that. And thank you so much for that. On my drive down from Chicago here, I was thinking about Graham and everything, and Graham really liked the image of Illinois cornfields. So I would like to thank Mother Nature for turning those cornfields into duck ponds now. Because Graham liked hunting as well, so he liked cornfields. He probably liked hunting more than cornfields. So now we have, just as I was driving down 130, beautiful duck ponds everywhere in what used to be cornfields that would be grown by Monsanto to then make chemicals and fuel for our vehicles. Much better to let the ducks eat the corn. Thank you to EIU for finally trusting me that this was a good idea. It took a while for this to trust, given the history of things that Graham and I did while we were here. In one of the moments that's probably etched into the institutional memory of EIU here, I ran for student body president, which is neither here nor there. Graham was my minister of propaganda, so we were kind of a team in the whole thing. And they had this candidates forum, which you were supposed to go and say what your plan was for EIU or whatever. So the guy I was running against, ironically named Glenn Good, gave his 7-point plan or 8-point plan with well-articulated hand gestures and whatnot. And then it was my turn. So there was a table set up, and two people from the student government, 2 women from the student government were there. Their names were Muffy and Biffy or something like that. So Graham comes up, he's wearing a long black trench coat and a starter's pistol and it stuck in his waistband, which was not a good idea in our current era, of school. But back then it was funny, at least to us. So he's standing behind, like this or like this. There's a great picture of him standing there. And then I jumped on the table and read from William Burroughs' Naked Lunch about Dr. Benway removing a uterine tumor with his teeth. This was the first time this had been done at one of these candidates. And since we're talking about trust, based on that, the students of EIU trusted us enough to elect me. Thank you to them. I should also add thank you to the existing members of the student government for not trusting me and then impeaching me. So Clinton got impeached too. So I have my Butler Global Initiative now. Another reason they might not have trusted us with this, Graham and I, when we used to sit, and I was talking to Graham's mom beforehand about this crazy story she has about me not helping move stuff out when we moved out of this house. I don't know where she got that. We lived in a place that we dubbed the House of Pain. And we used to listen to Black Flag, which was our favorite band at the time. There's now 2 Black Flags, in case you're interested in that. 2 separate versions of Black Flag that are touring for the first time in years. Go see them. But anyway, we used to listen particularly to this one song, which is called Spray Paint the Walls, as we were actually spray painting the walls of our rental place, the House of Pain. The landlord did not trust us, with good reason. Another reason, maybe for not trusting, is, and this is a confession. I've never said this before, and it's kind of personal information about Graham. Graham, at that time, he had an addiction, and I was his dealer. I used to go up to the south side of Chicago, and it was this warehouse in a deserted street, and I used to procure stuff for Graham. And I'm embarrassed to say it now because, it's not a good thing. But that thing I procured for him were used Hawaiian shirts on the south side of Chicago. A friend of mine had a company that bought stuff that was dumped off at Goodwill, and they'd separate out the Hawaiian shirts, and then I would go and pick through them and get the best Hawaiian shirts. So I was Graham's Hawaiian shirt dealer. So if you've seen pictures of him, he was wearing a Hawaiian shirt in a lot of them, and I bear a lot of responsibility for that. I, myself, have graduated to Guayabera shirts, which would be kind of your Mexican equivalent of a Hawaiian shirt. Another reason, perhaps, EIU didn't trust me with this is, and anyone who applied for the scholarship knows that the scholarship awards are done according to Zeno's dichotomy paradox, where there's one award given, and then the next award is half of that, and the next award is half of that, and the next award is half of that. And Graham and I were big fans of Zeno, just his kind of single-mindedness in adhering to an idea in and his ultimate proposition being that there was no motion, that this was all an illusion, adhering to this idea in spite of all the evidence to the contrary. There's a great, I won't bore you with Zeno's paradoxes, but one thing I did in giving money to establish this scholarship is I gave some money to the scholarship, and then we didn't have this poetry slam that year, so the next year I gave half. And then the year after that, if we didn't have it, then I gave half again. There was a new person who came on, I believe, I don't know, Jana Zollinger, who came on to the EIU Foundation, who really worked with us to get this together, and we're so happy that we finally got it. Just a fantastic thing. One thing Graham was famous for writing, in addition to his poetry, was he was a great writer of songs as well. He had a band, the Haight Brothers, who will be reuniting and playing tomorrow at Grand Jam. You should all go. As well as he wrote for another band called Stump Whoop. And he wrote a song called Honky Tonk in Heaven, which I've been thinking about that lately. And in light of my comment about Graham looking up at us, I think that's a good thing. I'll just read you a little bit of it. There's a honky tonk in heaven, a tavern where angels let go, back in the woods, away from the good Lord's throne. There's a honky tonk in heaven, though it ain't in the Bible, I know. There's a honky tonk in heaven, buddy, I'm raring to go. Graham had clearly a way with words, and this particular poem I like better because I'm not a poet, and I think all poems should rhyme, and this doesn't. But it got me to thinking about Graham, where Graham's at now. If you listen to some of the preachers that are on TV, and Graham was fond of watching them on the TV once in a while, they would say that a guy like Graham wouldn't get into heaven. Graham liked to have a drink now and then. Graham liked to have a cigarette now and then. And by now and then, I mean now and then. So they'd say, you know, that a guy like Graham, you know, wouldn't make it into heaven. He had these points. But I like to think that a guy like Graham, whose words were so visceral and shocking, he loved that about his poems, that he could write poems and try to shock people and have these stark images. For those of us who knew Graham, he was the biggest softy there ever was. I don't know a single person who had a bigger heart than Graham. Just sitting around the room, There has to be, in this room, I think there's so many people who would count at Graham as like one of their greatest friends that they ever had in their life. And I don't know if there's a person who ever lived who has that number of people, that number of connections, who view him as just one of the greatest friends that they ever had. He made so many connections and just connected with people on such an intense level. Everyone who Graham came across loved Graham, despite the fact that he had this writing style and kind of his exterior that was gruff and whatever. He was a big teddy bear. As my friend Jack Palmer and I, when we went to Graham's house and met Graham's family the first time, they called him Gummy. And so, of course, after that, he was always Gummy to Jack and I. And we frequently said it with kind of a sneer, too, because we thought it was funny to make fun of him. But Gummy's a great name for Graham. It really kind of sums up his soul, his spirit. So, if there's a honky-tonk in heaven, then Graham is at that honky-tonk right now, and he's having a beer, and I look forward to the time when the creator calls my name that I'll be up there having a drink with Graham. So, one last thing. I think they're still deliberating. I wrote everything on the back of my ticket from California, so I'll just read to you from that. Butler, Joseph, Gate 5, boarding pass, Santa Barbara, which is where I came from. Thank you all for coming to this event, and thank you for participating, and thank you for judging. I would not have wanted to be the judge of these fine performances and pieces. Thank you to everyone. I'm so pleased that we're able to come together and celebrate the memory of our great friend, Graham Lewis. Dan, it's so much work putting this together.
Thank you, Joe. All right. And the Oscar goes to. Yes, I do. Okay. We do not have certificates or anything because we just determined the places as the performance is taking place. So when I call your name, stand up, take a bow, smile at the folks, give them the finger, do some jump jacks, whatever you like to do. It's perfectly all right. Ninth place goes to Emily Scaro. Eighth place, Tori Sims. Seventh place, JP Salis. Sixth place, Emily Bowers. Fifth place, Solomon Enis. Was that signature? Fourth place, David Banyai. Third place, Ethan Slattery. Second, Hannah Green. And first place winner, Porche Graves. Appreciate it, and we'll be doing it again next year and the year after that, and into infinity, hopefully.